All right, welcome to Pass the Mic, episode 32 for Friday, July 8th via Zoom again, since we're enjoying our summer and away from Studio B. It's Mike Pehote here, joined by Mike Gervasi. Welcome.
And on the cool check-in, center stage on the mic, and we putting it on wax. That's the Beastie Boys. Mike?
Thank you for letting me know, since it wasn't Yacht Rock, which is what is on Sirius. I had 2 weeks of listening to Sirius satellite radio and jumped all over the place.
Yeah.
But I am back here in the home studio in Brownstown Township.
Okay,
code
now
4173.
you're listening to Sirius. Did you get caught up on any of the old school rap?
Well, here's the deal in Sirius. My wife, even though I'm the driver, she's very possessive of the Sirius station, and I'll get told that I have to change the station. As a matter of fact, on 80s on 8, they had a live show with Kenny Loggins.
Oh, yeah,
he
was on quite a bit this weekend.
And he was like talking and performing songs live, which I was really enjoying.
Wow.
My wife, not so much.
Yeah.
And she's normally, I think she likes him, but she said it just didn't sound good live, and she was annoyed by some of the questions were lame that people called in. But fun fact, according to that little drive, he never really met Tom Cruise until recently.
Really?
Yes, it was just until recently. And when they met, he wanted to know if Danger Zone was going to be in the new movie, and Tom Cruise said absolutely, it had to be, and it was not going to be redone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
No, I have not yet. You haven't even seen the old one, though.
I haven't seen the old one, but supposedly it's the same version from back in the day.
Now, Kenny Loggins, I know Top Gun, much more popular, but man, when I think of him, Stallone fans will appreciate this. I think of Over the Top.
Over the Top.
He had it was a sentimental ballad, but that's what I think of is Over the Top, Kenny Loggins.
Meet Me Halfway.
Yes. He did a pretty good song for Caddyshack. I don't know if it was Caddyshack 1 or 2, but he did a pretty good song for that too. But yeah,
so it was a cool thing. I wish I could have listened to it more, but we had to switch to the 10s or whatever. But that's
now. I see you're wearing. You're kind of, and we'll get into all the stuff we have to get into. But you're both your loyalties there.
I told I'm against. I was previously anti-Michigan, but I can't. I mailed the first tuition payment in, so I'm officially done being anti-Michigan. I am no longer anti-Michigan. And I was always sort of anti-Wings, but I've always been a Pistons fan, and part of it is there's no basketball in Pittsburgh. So
well, wait till you hear my hot mic today.
Oh my goodness. So any feedback from anybody that reached out to you? Coach Savader reached out. He was high on Michael Pena and told us that we should probably watch Ant-Man.
Yeah, he is. He maybe we might have to have a quick discussion with the Pates. I think that Tony might be our most loyal listener, although in fairness to the Pates, Joaquin had a little bit of a nasty injury last week.
Well, let's not violate HIPAA rights.
I'm sure they're okay with me. That information, but yeah, so they have more pressing concerns than Pass the Mic, is what I'm saying.
Yes, but so, and I guess I got nothing but time on. I guess those would probably be on Disney Plus. Are those considered Marvel movies? I
believe they are.
The superhero community is probably going to roast us now.
I know less than you do on that, so I know you're next to nothing. So
I did just finish Obi-Wan, so maybe I'll fire up one of the Ant-Man. So I got feedback from them. And again, it's been a rough. I just got back into town on Friday, or what was it? The 4th was Monday, right? So I got into town late Sunday the 3rd, and I'm finally got my feet under me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk more about the whole trip in my hot mic take, because I know some people wanted to hear stuff about it. But so I'm finally getting my feet back under me today. I went. One of the worst things about traveling is when you leave for that long of a time, your refrigerator is pretty much empty, right? Like other than condiments. So that first trip to the grocery store back is a doozy of a trip to the grocery store, and that was yesterday. So
gotcha. Yeah, I can imagine.
All right, do you have a mic of the week for us?
I do. Playing on the hockey theme, little preview, a little nugget for the hot mic. I'm going Mike Eruzione of the U.S. 1980 Olympic team fame. Wonderful guy. When he talks, he tells the story about it. Really, you can kind of feel the moment when he discusses it. So I'm going Mike Eruzione.
Oh, nice. You've thrown a little throwback hockey. I can't even comment because I don't even know. It's sort of like I probably when I threw Michael Pena at you last week. I'm sort of in the dark. So
yeah, I just wait till I get to the hot mic. I'm very excited.
Oh, you're ready to launch here. Right?
Yeah.
So, our education topic this week And both topics this week sort of came to me as I was on this 2-week marathon road trip. And one of the places we visited was Mount Rushmore. And so, you go there and I'll talk more about South Dakota and Mount Rushmore later, but you go there, the Badlands, first of all, beautiful in South Dakota. Mount Rushmore is amazing. It's a pretty cool situation, but it made me think of like, who are one or two people, historical figures that we sort of respect or look up to. You're obviously a social studies major, teach history. I have a history minor. We're both fans of the subject. We talked about, wanting to teach a class on the US presidents and that sort of thing. So I thought, what a great topic to discuss. Who are one or two historical figures that you have respect for that have sort of an impact on who you've become and the person you are? So who do you got? You got one, two, what do you have?
I'm going to, and I do this every year with my U.S. history classes. And I had a hard time with this. They've never put me on the spot, but I'm going with two for different reasons. And Mike, I really wrestled with this, and there's a lot of people, I almost hate this question because I'm like, I'm leaving so many pivotal figures out. Obviously I can't apologize to everybody I'm leaving out because they wouldn't care. But I'm going to start with Malcolm X. Actually, spent a lot of time. I don't know if a lot of people know this. He lived in Lansing, lived in Detroit, so somewhat of a local figure. Born Malcolm Little in Omaha, Nebraska, and his story is so interesting. I read his autobiography about 20 years ago. Really had an impact on me on how I viewed the world. And ever since, I teach him in U.S. history, and the kids really gravitate towards his speeches, even when he said things that were pretty awful, frankly. His life sort of went through transitions, but he spoke to the masses. His education, ultimately, sadly, was in prison. And I'm going to start with him, just a phenomenally interesting historical figure on so many levels. Andrew Burgess and I discuss, and I'm going to use this for my second figure, what might have been had certain historical figures lived. Malcolm never lost that militancy, that strength, but he certainly modified his views. He's sort of been, use of the word whitewashed, I guess, a little bit, to make him more palatable to audiences. He really never lost that militancy. He just certainly changed his outlook. So he is one. And then the second one is Bobby Kennedy. A little bit of the lesser known Kennedys sadly died the same way his older brother John did. And Bobby, his brother gave the eulogy at his funeral, and he gave a quote. He was quoting from somebody else, but he applied it to his brother. Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream things that never were and say, why not? Bobby just was absolutely amazing on so many levels. What might have been, and like I said, Andrew Burgess and I have discussed writing a book, sort of in our more fantasy.
We might have to have the Burge on the show here.
Yeah, and this is one that, what might have been. He might win the 1968 election, which means we don't have Richard Nixon, which means we don't have Watergate. I don't want to really geek out totally here, but, do Americans have more trust in government now? Because there's kind of a moment, and there's other things that happened, but Watergate was one of those moments where Americans really lost faith in government. So how might our world look different today had he lived? So those are my two historical figures, Malcolm X and Bobby Kennedy.
I think one thing that's important when you talk about historical figures in the past was a totally different era, and everyone's going to have some skeletons in their closet of, things. So when you mention a name or here or there that somebody may, it's easy to go back and look on somebody's life 30, 40 years down the road, but we all sort of have those things. When I first started thinking about this, I actually had one politician and one athlete. And I had my politician, I changed it to Robert Kennedy. I initially was going to be FDR, and I changed it to Robert Kennedy for a lot of the same reasons that you discussed, sort of the what if factor of Robert Kennedy. I think that you and I have talked about this before. I think the civil rights movement and the racial makeup of this country would have been much smoother and better under an RFK lifetime. I just feel that's my own personal opinion. I think with his passing, we've got paused even longer than we necessarily had to be.
And if you don't mind interrupting, and I'm not hijacking your thing here, his assassination actually took place. It was almost exactly 2 months after Kings. So you really have
a void.
Yeah.
It was a huge void, and like you said, you add in all the extra drama that happened. Of course, he was only 42 years old, and here's another thing we sort of knock on whatever political party it is. We need to go back to this, where politicians that are running for office, these people 70 or 80, no offense, my dad's a great guy, he's in his upper 70. I couldn't imagine the stress of the job on him, of doing that job. And I don't understand. And it's sort of our generation that's sort of getting left behind, in a way of like, how many, like I said, we would be babies in the US Senate at 46.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
It's unbelievable. And here was a guy 42, cut down way too early. And again, he was on his way to probably winning the primary, and there's still the presidential election.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, if you watch his funeral train procession, people of all walks of life, black, white, so forth, nuns, Boy Scouts, Little League players, they came out to see the train. Like, how many historical figures would we have? I'm sorry, not historical figure. How many figures today would we get that sort of unity? I can't think of any, to be honest with you.
It was someone cut way too short, and you can do what ifs all the time, because I think racial relations in this country suffered majorly because of that, because of his passing. My other historical figure also had their life cut short, and I'm tip of the Pirates hat to Roberto Clemente. Died on New Year's Eve in 1972. He was an NL MVP in 1966. He was 38 years old. He was on a rescue mission. The plane crashed, flying things back to Puerto Rico, his home country. His career obviously ended. He was at 3,000 hits, so it sort of ties into with Miguel Cabrera this year. He was just a legend, and a guy that was, 38. We talk about baseball players, but that was a different era too. Guys would play well into their lower 40s, mid 40s back then too, and just changed the game of baseball. And some of his highlights, where you watch him throwing from the outfield, it's like a freak of nature. Back in an era where guys weren't in the weight room all the time, they were just sort of who they were. And my son and I were we went one of the stops on our trip. We were at the Rockies Dodgers game. We stopped in Colorado, and he was watching a guy in the warm-ups throw a ball from center field all the way to the third baseline, like it was me and you just tossing the ball in the backyard. And it's amazing. Again, that's one thing. Pro athletes, they earn every penny, in my opinion, and I'm always amazed by the stuff they can do. And I think back to that era of baseball and Roberto Clemente, not only as a athlete, but as a person and a human being, the loss was tremendous. And again, gone way too early, 38 years of age.
Yeah.
So my two people I sort of picked that had a positive impact in their careers, what they did, but then were also taken from us way too early. So those are my two figures that I wanted to point out, and maybe throw olive branch to our baseball fans.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It's funny. He's such a massive figure that I knew he was a baseball player, obviously, but that isn't even what comes to my mind. And he is certainly one of the best, 50 players of all time. I'm sure some baseball people might debate that, but I think of him in so many other realms. He was such an important figure that you don't even necessarily consider him totally in baseball. So
he came to mind to us too, because my son, there's a Dodgers fan there that it was a Brooklyn Dodgers jersey, Jackie Robinson jersey, which I thought was really cool. It was a cool, and I told him, I'm getting to be old man status now. Back when I was a kid, I'd always get jerseys, right, with people's numbers and names on it. And now you get to a point where, like, I'm not paying for that because it's outrageously expensive, and then they're going to be gone the next year. So I told my son, I go, that'd be a cool jersey that I'd always be willing to buy, because it's just classic. And the same with the Roberto Clemente Pirates jersey, like, because first of all, the Pirates are going to sell off anyone that's good anyway. So you better buy a Roberto Clemente or Willie Stargell jersey, because other than that, they're going somewhere else down the road anyway. But just two cool jerseys, and that's what sort of made me think of that. So
Bobby Bonilla Day just passed.
Yes, he did. Former Pirate that they sold. Luckily, they got rid of it. They got rid of maybe a Barry Bonds old Pirate. I had a Barry Bonds old Pirate jersey back in the day. Crazy.
Really?
Before he got shipped off to the Giants, when he was small and not a huge head.
Mike, I was such a
literally and figuratively.
I was such a fan of his. I was younger, in 8th grade, so this is pre, head getting bigger. I got an earring when I was in 8th grade. I didn't do the cross like he did, but
go watch the YouTube video of him and Jim Leland fighting at spring training classes.
Such a great video.
You can look it up on YouTube. It's a classic. So, all right, that brings us to overrated, underrated. So that also comes from this road trip. I'm thinking the 50 US states. I drove through, I think my wife did the tally, I think 14, 15 if you count leaving Michigan, which is in a 2-week period. So I had a lot under my belt. So I figured, every state has its good and bad. So I want to know again, this isn't good or bad really. It's overrated, underrated. What is your overrated US state, 1 of 50?
Overrated was easy. And I'm gonna like mentally guess that you have the same one. I'm gonna say Florida.
We
Florida
did not
has
discuss this before.
Yeah, and well, we discussed Disney World, and again,
Yeah.
for the kids, it's great, but it's such a hot and long trip. You always need a rest from the vacation that you took. The weather is nice, beaches are great, but there are beaches in other places, and Florida is notorious for all the crazy stuff that happens there. I know a local radio station used to do only this could happen in Florida, and it was every day something crazy. And I know that's cherry picking. You probably do that any place, but I'm going Florida for so many reasons. It just everybody. I realize people retire there. I'm sure you have family members, as do I. But I'm saying Florida, just highly overrated.
Yeah, you're right. You read my mind. I'm going to agree with Florida. I've been there numerous times, both Disney and not Disney. I've flown there. I drove there. Yes, it has a great climate and beaches, but so does the Gulf states. Mississippi and Alabama have some nice white sand beaches along the Gulf too. But it's sort of like unless you're going out to Hawaii, it's really the only show in town, so you're sort of stuck with that. And then you add the Disney factor in, but it's just sort of like one of those things that we deal with, and I guess we're going to, right?
Yeah,
Like you're
right.
going to Disney, or yeah, I'm going to, and we did a road trip a few years ago to Clearwater, and again, it's a great, cool town, and I've been to a game in Tampa, a baseball game. I've been to a Steeler Buccaneers game. I mean, the state just continues to grow. I mean, there has to be a point where it's like it runs out of room, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, I guess, but to me, again, I don't think it's like the worst state of the 50. Is just overrated. Like people think it's like the greatest thing in the world. So this is one of those that clearly not bad. I've been there. I've traveled there. I've spent money there. I've gone multiple. That's probably one of the states, if I probably looked it up other than Pennsylvania, that I've been to the most outside of the other 50 states. But it's just, oh, man, overrated. So
Yeah.
What is your underrated?
So, I struggled with this one. I haven't been to nearly as many states as you have. And, I was talking to Kristen about it, and I arrived at the conclusion it's going to be Michigan. Outside of here, I really don't think people really can appreciate the beauty of the state. I told you I spent a lot of time in the UP in the last decade or so. That is just a gorgeous place to go visit in the summer. I'm with you on the seasons. I don't like the 4 seasons that everybody waxes poetically about. That's probably the one thing that's the one thing I really don't like. But there's so many things here that I really don't think the rest of the country, when they talk about places to go, I'm a New York fan, and a lot of people, when they think United States, think of New York. I just got back from Chicago, wonderful place to be. But to me, Michigan just has so much to offer. I really don't think the rest of the country understands it. So I'm going with Michigan as my underrated.
After driving through a lot of states, I'm going to tell you right now that Michigan has a perfect combination of city life, away from city life, and not to the point where it's so barren and nothing. Okay, right. At least that's one thing Elise and I were talking about. Crossing 94 across the state, you don't really ever get into an area where it's totally abandoned. I mean, right. Yes, it's smaller. Same with 96. Same with 75 going up north until you really get into the UP. But you still get a nice balance. There are some states that we went on this trip that like literally you have to get gas or you won't make it to the next town that is inhabited, which is just crazy to me. My underrated, and that's going to be somewhere I just visited on this trip, the first time ever. We stayed there for the most nights we stayed anywhere, 3 nights, because it was right outside Yellowstone, the state of Idaho. And we stayed in a town called Island Park. And again, I'm going to say it's underrated because I never would have thought, up until this year planning this trip, I never said, oh, I can't wait to go to Idaho. And it is a beautiful state. The area we stayed in, we drove about 2 hours through it to get to our next stop. The people were extremely friendly. The the town we were in, this Island Park, which is about 30 minutes from West Yellowstone, Montana, to get into the park, it seemed to be a very heavy tourist town for fishing and fly fishing, which was really cool to see. It was still a pretty neat place to go. From what I read, and I did a little research, a lot of values of homes are going up in Idaho because people from Northern California are moving into Idaho because it's cheaper and undiscovered. So if you've never been out that way, and again, did I cover the whole state? Did I go all the way up to the crazy I part? No, I was down in the southeast. But I can just say from my little visit there, it's definitely someplace where 20-year-old me would be like, I never need to go to Idaho, where I would almost go back to this place. And again, I'm one of these people with traveling. For me, I try not to repeat things, but I think it's an underrated state. And I don't think it's good from the sounds of things. From what I read, a lot of these people moving in, it's underrated status may be disappearing because so many people are starting to move and go there. So Idaho is my underrated of the 50 US states. We'd love to hear what other people think. I don't think we're going to hear anything like Florida being underrated, but we may hear some other states that people find underrated that are sort of hidden gems. So, all right. Do you have a hot mic take for the week?
I do. All right. So ESPN E60 did a documentary, and I'll preface by saying, as you know, I'm not a huge hockey fan, but it brought me back. I was in the 90s, and they did an unrivaled documentary on the Red Wings and Avalanche. I am going to recommend this for any sports fan, any fan, anything. I mean, it is, Mike, it is so well done. I don't want to give too much away for the people that haven't seen it. I think that if you know it's out there, and if you were a hockey fan at all, you probably have already seen it. But I'm kind of speaking to others that may have been more casual at the time, maybe celebrated when the Red Wings won the Cup in 97, 98. It is truly remarkable. You get all the perspectives, and what they did is they brought on the 25th anniversary of the big fight that took place at Joe Louis. And I'm normally not a fan of fighting, but that as a fan of sports, I do believe it had to happen. But they brought Claude Lemieux and Darren McCarty into LCA and just did like a casual conversation between the two of them with the fans on hand. And it was really cool. And Claude Lemieux comes off pretty well, frankly. And a lot of the other villains in this, from a Detroiter's perspective, Patrick Waugh, I mean, you hated him, and he was so hateable that he filled that villain role perfectly. He comes across really well. You just see a lot of people, and I had forgotten this. I knew about it. The fact that the Konstantinov thing happened so close to the winning the Cup, that is really brought out too. So it's an amazing documentary. I'm telling you to watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. And I know you've over the years liked to poke at Red Wing fans, but I think you'll really enjoy this. And the listener, it's amazing. So that's my hot mic.
Ironically, on our trip, which I'll talk about here on my hot mic, we arrived in Denver on, I think it was a Wednesday, checked into our hotel, and luckily it was a Wednesday because Thursday was the parade for the Stanley Cup, and it was a block from our hotel. So we checked in Wednesday. My son and I went to the Dodgers game that night. They had the players, they brought the cup out, their captain threw the first pitch. Excuse my ignorance on the Colorado Avalanche. I don't. My son had to start telling me who was who, and he didn't even have a ton of info because we're not a huge NHL family, and we're Penguins fans, so it's a Western Conference team and this and that. But so that was pretty cool to see, just to see the people celebrating. And then we got up early the next day because literally we could get out of our hotel, take a left, and the parade was right there. And I posted some pictures, and maybe I'll throw some pictures on the Facebook page. So it was like one of these things we just sort of stumbled across. Like it was literally like walking out your door and turning and walking 10 feet. I didn't know anyone, who was who, but just because I've never gone to any of the Piston ones. Sure. I was too young for the '84 Tigers, obviously, and then I didn't go to the Piston ones. I didn't go to the Wing ones, and those were it, right? Like so. So it was cool to see. The people. It was fun, just people day drinking and living it up. And we didn't go to the rally. We went and had lunch, but it was right there. And then when we were eating dinner that night, on all the TVs was the special you were talking about, the ESPN special. I couldn't hear it, but I could see the footage, and my son was asking me about the fight. And it's definitely something I think I want to take a look at, even though I'm not the biggest Wings fan or Avalanche fan. I was just sort of there as a neutral participant watching this parade, and it was pretty cool though. The people, good for the people. That's always a good feeling. I mean, other than the Cleveland Browns, I think I would cheer for success for just about anybody. So good for the people of Denver. It's
Like,
been a while for them too.
You mentioning the parade. I remember I went to the '04 Piston one. I think as a society, this is a show for a discussion for another show, but we do put too much of a premium on sports. At the same time, when you go to a parade, and I love sports, by the way, I do. I'm just like, I think that some things have gotten out of hand, but nonetheless, you go to a parade, the feeling, I remember thinking this in '04, tell me now with more than 1 million people here celebrating that sports don't matter. You bring people together. It's awesome.
It was a Thursday in a major city, and like there was like some young professionals by us that clearly took the day off work and had a case of White Claws, and they were slamming them and stomping them on the ground. And we were probably the only people there in just neutral clothing. I think I didn't. And so like I took pictures of my kids as the cup drove by, and a lady volunteered to take all of our pictures. Everyone's just obviously in a good mood and friendly. It was really cool to experience. And again, I didn't have to deal with parking. I didn't have to deal with driving home. So of course why wouldn't I not walk up on this and check it out? So, so some people had asked, and so I'm just gonna. So we've been planning this trip since November, and we a couple things just sort of fell into place. Luckily, my wife's lease had way under the mileage. We decided that the only thing that sort of didn't fall into our favor was gas prices, but that's sort of out of control. We got lucky because Yellowstone, as you know, before it was flooded and we didn't think we were going to get in, they did open it, so we got lucky and we were able to go into the park. Some people that I talked to people out there. Some people fly into Montana to do this trip to hit Yellowstone and the stuff out there. We decided we were going to suck it up and drive. So it was a 2-week Sunday to Sunday adventure. I sort of got out Google Maps and sort of, I don't know about you, but I don't have a problem driving. I can usually knock out 12, 13 is my cap, with a stop obviously to eat or do whatever. So I started planning out like 9-hour drives, got us to Rochester, Minnesota, just to get us out. And then we stopped for 2 nights in South Dakota, the Badlands and Mount Rushmore, like I mentioned. Man, the Badlands were beautiful. Mount Rushmore is pretty cool too, but man, it's a lot of money and a lot of time just to go hop into. And again, went to many states, right? And again, I'm not being political here. South Dakota's economy, focus more on your natural beauty and not the MAGA anti-Joe Biden shirts. I don't, every gift shop, all the other Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, all the other gift shops are about the natural beauty. For some reason, South Dakota, their economy must be based on Let's Go Brandon shirts or something, I guess. But that's just my personal opinion. You have enough beautiful stuff there to focus on it. And it's funny at the Rockies game, I met the people in front of us, the ladies from North Dakota, and she says there's absolutely nothing to do from North Dakota. I go, what about South Dakota? And she goes, Mount Rushmore and the Badlands, and then that's it.
That's it, yeah.
It drew us in there. Like I said, we drove through Wyoming and into Grand Teton Park, and then up into Jackson Hole, and then we stayed in our place in Idaho, an Airbnb. Beautiful. Yellowstone, it's just amazing. Our country, we're so blessed, from going to Europe, where everything's so tight and compact, and there is a little bit of land here and there, to the total opposite. I mean, we just have so much that's open and beautiful, and the national park system is something, right or left. I mean, I think everyone can agree that the U.S. government did correctly in protecting lands, and it was just great. Yep, and beautiful. We spent 3 nights there. Then we drove down into southern Utah and to see Zion, do some experiences. It was popped in, like I mentioned last time. We stopped in Salt Lake City. Then we did 2 nights in Santa Fe. Very cool town, very cool city, great vibe. I one of those places, like whenever I travel, I think, can I retire here? And Santa Fe is definitely the vibe of a town. People were so friendly and just a really cool town. So, it reminds me of Ann Arbor multiplied, like a much bigger scale, I guess is what I would say. And so that was cool. And then we drove up 2 hours from there to Denver. Like I said, just got lucky, popped in, we were able to catch a Dodgers game, we were able to catch that parade. Totally different vibe from everything else. We're downtown, there's a celebration, tons of people. And then the plan was to drive home through Kansas City and then get home in one day. But then my in-laws, I want to give a shout out to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law that live just out of Des Moines. had us stop there. We stayed there for 2 nights, which thank God, because I needed the rest. With all that driving, 2 nights of stays help. And it was pretty cool to be in Iowa. Cheapest gas on the route was in Iowa, by the way.
Oh, really?
Mid to low fours at the point of recording. I know we're starting to pull back a little bit here, but Iowa was, and then we went to like the farmers market downtown. Just something I'm really happy that my kids were able to experience, to see all these different places. Did everyone like every aspect of the trip? No, but when you have 2 weeks of time, everyone had things they liked and didn't like. So if it's something you can plan and it falls into your wheelhouse and you don't mind driving, reach out to me. I'll give you things that worked well and things that didn't. But it's definitely a great time and we enjoyed it. But I'm also happy to be home back in the 48173, I guess. So
sure. Well, cool. That sounds great. That sounds.
Speaking of that, I want to know, how was your flight, your 4th of July flight?
Oh
As we
man,
wrap things up this week.
You know,
you didn't get hit with any stray fireworks or anything.
I'm not the best flyer, and this I thought I was gonna be a lot more nervous than I was, but it was. You know, I got to credit my friend Jeff. He did remarkable work for us. I would recommend this to anybody. My kids, actually, both Natalia and Melina, got to actually pilot for a little bit, or co-pilot.
Oh, nice.
I guess would be the more apt
I was
expression.
washing cars in my driveway that morning, and I heard a plane. I almost thought to wonder if it was you flying over the downriver area ahead. As
I think it was, Mike. I think it probably was. I
didn't even think to look up.
Well, I heard from the Pates, they said that their dog was, because I sent the pictures to them that I sent you overhead of Marauder Stadium, and they asked me if it was me, and because I know we flew over that neighborhood, and they said their dog Sam was chasing us. So
no, yeah, I was washing the car after the long road trip. And also, by the way, the one casualty of the road trip, something hit us in Illinois and shattered the windshield, which I got to go take care of tomorrow. Yeah, we're very lucky, as a matter of fact, that it didn't do serious damage, or like, could imagine you're driving, it's the 4th weekend, that goes in a grill or something, you're not going anywhere for who knows how long. That's the only risk of, I don't even know. Nate and my wife thinks it came out of a car. I just saw it flying high in the air. It hit the passenger side windshield. I mean, just didn't like go in, hit and went up. But
wow.
Like
so
I said, we're all very, no, it was a object. Looks like something that maybe they may have hit Nancy Kerrigan's knee with, some sort of long dark stick or something. I don't.
Too soon. I mean, 28 years. I
don't know. Not too soon. That's a long time ago. So, but we're safely back. So that's it. So, any plans coming up, or is it now time to lay low and just?
No, I'm going to take a short trip to west side of the state, but really short. My birthday's coming up, and then see some old friends. I imagine you'll be there as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm back. I'm not going anywhere. So, but yeah, all right. Well, hey,
you're just
back to running the kids around. Running to Ann Arbor today. Nate has an allergist appointment, and then getting ready for the school year, like we said, stuff like that. So,
okay.
All right. Like I said, reach out if you want to join us on one of these Zooms, because that's what we're probably doing most weeks until we get back into the studio in August. Have a great week, and thanks for joining us, everybody.